Welcome back. Who doesn't love a chicken pie? Well, here's an opportunity for me to share a couple of the tips and tricks of pulling together a great chicken pie. Still have my support person here, matching. I think she's matching today. Santa's little helper. As we head into the Christmas season, this is a great little recipe that could be used with leftover turkey. If you've got some leftover turkey, I've mentioned it before, it's about preparation. I'll be laughed at if I say this again. Prep. Making sure that you've got everything ready to go, ready prepped, cooked up, ready to put into the one combination. So I'm going to show a combination of things. We're going to start over here, sort of rushing you around a bit. Start over here, obviously a hot pan, hot as possible. A little bit of butter. What I've found with this is if you use too much butter, it gets too wet, and we don't want to have a situation where the chicken is too wet when we're using our chicken pie mixture, because it really does start to boil. Okay, so let's just get a little bit of hot butter going in there. Sorry, you're going to see more of the cooking than me today. I like to put in the onion. Got a little bit of butter in there, onion as well. Two little onions in there. I'm hoping this will cook for about 6 people, based on what I've done before. And whilst I get that moving around, I should be using a spoon. Maggie will help me with that. What happened to the spoons, Mags? Here we go. Talk about prep. That was not it. Now, one of these things that you can't have enough of in this recipe is garlic. So you don't feel like you're underdoing it in any way or overdoing it. Just put in as much as you think. If you're a big garlic lover, go big garlic. If not, go less. Okay, so waiting for that just to really sweat up there. As I said, you've only got butter in there at the moment, so you might even want to whack a lug of oil in. Again, not too much. Because we want the chicken to brown off rather than boil, okay? So that's brown off rather than boil. So letting that go, that's probably enough there. I'm happy to chuck the chicken in. I think there's about 500 grams of chicken in there roughly. Don't do what I've done before, and I've left that little plastic thing in there. This is an opportunity to really just brown that chicken off. You might want to put in some salt and pepper. We can keep adding to this part of the process. And allowing that to cook off and to brown up. As I said, I think I mentioned the other day that as we're heading into the Christmas season, I was looking for some of the sticky tape, that double-sided tape or the invisible tape, and I went down to the supermarket and I asked one of the individuals there who worked there, and she said, aisle 5, and I said, yeah, awesome. I went down and said I couldn't find it. Couldn't see the invisible tape, and while she didn't understand it, she came back, she grabbed it, and she showed it to me, and I said, I still can't see it. So that was a wasted gag, and I won't waste that again on you now. So let's just have a quick whip at this. So, careful, that pan's really hot, so I'm going to make sure I don't burn myself on the side there. As I said, browning off. I've had situations where the chicken gets too much moisture if the pan's not hot enough, and it really does sit in the bottom of the pan and cause it to be somewhat boiled. You want to try and brown it off. I've even previously, you could even do chicken breasts and put them on the barbecue and really get that crispness of the chicken breast from the barbie flames, and chop it up and put it in that way. Either way, this way works quite well. If you buy it pre-cut, makes it a bit easier. Having to cut it yourself can be a bit time consuming and also a bit messy. So letting that brown off, as I said, giving as much heat as possible, keeping on the highest heat, and letting that brown off. So there's a number of things you can also add to this, and I'll show you a few combinations. I've got the spring onion that will add Again, spinach. You might want to add things like capsicum, green, red capsicum, doesn't matter, yellow. You might want to put in zucchini. Sometimes I've put in, things like cashew nuts or almonds or things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of different combinations you can put with this chicken pie. Sometimes it depends on what's in the fridge or the pantry, and happy to kind of throw in. I don't think you can get it wrong as such, but really just sort of playing around with those opportunities. So just as heating that up, letting that brown off, and obviously making sure it cooks right through. One of the things with chicken is making sure that it absolutely cooks through as much as possible. And of course, if any chicken falls out of the pan, you always have a support person here, we're AMAX, to help pick up any of those issues that drop out of the pan. Very helpful. Unlike the kids, she doesn't talk back and doesn't complain or doesn't take the mickey out of my jokes, which is perfect. Perfect girl, aren't you? Good girl. Okay, letting that cook off. Might want to put in a little bit of chilli as well, depending on the flavour palette it tastes at home. A little bit, don't overdo it. A bit of salt. Whilst that's also heating up and browning up where possible, with the puff pastry, making sure that if that was frozen, if you haven't done it yourself, rolled it yourself, if that puff pastry has an opportunity to thaw out, and I'll show you how to kind of mix that up a little bit later in terms of getting that prepped. Okay, that's starting to cook through mostly. It's still a little bit pink, of course. You want to cook it as much as possible. Even though once we do cook that, we're going to be putting it in the base of the pie, and it will be reheated pretty high, about 180 degrees for 20-30 minutes. So it will continue to cook a little bit more of that chicken. So when that's done, I've also got we can start adding bits to it. I've also got some parsley as well to put in. I'm going to use cream just to kind of thicken it up a little bit as well, depending on how thick you want it. One of the things is you don't want it, I mentioned a couple of times, you don't want it too wet because it boils the chicken, but if it's too wet, it actually becomes really sloppy in the pie, and it can make the pastry difficult in terms of quite soggy when you're cooking it through, because you want that crisp pastry that you can break off. Sometimes that's probably the best part of the pie. So that's looking good. I've had situations where I've needed to drain some of that liquid out just to really help with getting that chicken as cooked as possible and trying to bring a little bit of brownness to it, which it looks okay there. Let's give you a quick little look at that. Give you a sense of wet that might be. So you can see the build-up of liquid there just from the chicken itself, and still a little bit underdone. I'll go in with the parsley. Go in now with the spring onion, and we'll do it all at once. We'll put in the spinach as well. A little bit extra, actually use it all. Again, not great on measurements, just really trying to get a sense of what works, what doesn't, what's too much, what's not enough. So we'll mix that through. Just put you back there, give you a sit, wide angle. Again, hot pan. That liquid will get soaked up a little bit from the spinach and the spring onion there. So we've got it all in. Okay, now here's where I want to put in some of that. Yeah, it's looking pretty cooked. Put in just some cream, just some normal thickened cream. Again, a fair slug of that. I do like adding a little bit of butter in it, just because it gives it that nice taste. So we're going to use a little bit of that butter, that last bit of butter that I've got there, just basically on the pastry later on when we put that on top. Okay, so that's starting to sort of cook through. Here's another trick. So I've taught you the idea of a bit of that thickness, making sure it's not too runny. And I know my mum won't like this in terms of how it's done, because she'll say it gets too floury. But just putting in a little bit of plain flour can help thicken it up. Okay, so Mum, don't watch this. You'll say that I've failed by doing this. Just 2 large scoops there of that plain flour, and just slowly kind of stirring that in. Mum says it makes it floury, but I think it's okay. I actually don't, because we've got enough kind of that garlic and the salt and pepper in there to really enhance that flavour. You might want to add some cheese to it. You might want to put some parmesan in, or some cheddar, or even a blue cheese maybe, depending again on your taste. I'm going to do this just as a plain chicken and spinach pie. So we'll leave those out, but that might be an option that you want to add to it. So that's really looking good. I'm going to bring the camera back so you can have another look at that. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so you can see that's started to thicken up, and it will continue to thicken up as it kind of stays on that heat. Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'll leave that and come back to you once that's just done a little bit longer. Okay, I think that's just about done, that chicken. It's, I've turned it off the heat. It's nice and thick. Now I just want to get to the pastry itself, okay? So we've essentially, let's put that down a little bit lower so you can see this. One of the first things you do, so if you're going to use the baking tray or some sort of dish, make sure you give it a good spray. Now you can either do this with a butter, just to rub around the edge, or spray. Spray's probably a little bit easier. And of course this stops the pastry sticking to the dish itself, so it makes it a lot easier when you're getting that out. Now, pretty simple process here. Just bringing the pastry, I'll do that so you can actually see it. So bringing the pastry just up to the edge where possible. Now I've got 3 bits of pastry here, of that puff pastry. 2 for the base, and I'm going to use 1 for the top. Now, this is where there's a little bit of fiddling around. I'm happy to say that it's just as easy just to kind of layer it on first, cut the edge off a little bit. I know it looks a bit rustic at the moment, but it'll all start to come together. And really just allowing the pastry just to fall around off the edge there. We're going to roll this over the edge bits anyway. So just giving some good coverage. I know, as I said, it looks very rustic, but that's okay. Make sure there's no little bits exposed. Try and take the edge. We're going to roll this over anyway. And keeping, might want to put some little edge. So I know that doesn't look great at the moment, but that's okay. Okay, so pie's still fairly hot, as in so that the mixture's still fairly hot. Sometimes you can wait over and sometimes leave this overnight. So you could leave, if you want, the filler, the chicken as such, overnight, put in the fridge if you wanted, or you can go straight. Now it doesn't really matter. This is obviously for tonight. There's another option. You can stretch it out over 24 hours as such, put it in the fridge. And then it's just a case of loading it in carefully, because remember that the pan is quite hot, and allowing the mixture just to fall in there. It's usually about the right amount. Just with a spatula, just really getting as much of it out as possible. Makes it easy for cleaning up later too. If you give the pan a good scrape, you can see it, that's all going pretty well. Okay. Now give it a good spread around. just to kind of fill that space. Awesome. Really right amount. Here we go. Little sprinkling of pepper inside. I've already put some of that chili in, so I probably don't need to do that anymore. A little bit more salt just on the top. Now, there's a number of ways you can do this. You can either just put this on top, or you can make some nice little cool holes. So if you've got something that can pop some holes out of the pastry, what I've got there, I've got a little metal straw. It just gives it that kind of different look, but also in a practical sense, make sure those come out, it allows the heat to come out when you're putting it in the oven. So you can see there, I've just made a couple of neat little holes. And in fact, it's probably easy if I just put it on like that and allow it to just sit there. Now, what's kind of cool is just roll the edge as well. Roll that edge where you can of the pie. That's why it didn't really matter before how rustic it was. This is kind of the good part of the pie too. Remember the bit of that crust. There's a little bit there. We can just feed around. Now, you could have used that butter, remember that butter that I had before, to give it a bit of a base. There's a couple of options. You could use an egg, break up an egg and then brush that on. Or just as simple, if you do have some of that canola spray or vegetable spray, just giving it a bit of a spray on top. This really will help that brown off when it goes into the fridge. And here's another nice thing I like to put on top is just some sesame seeds. You could use poppy seeds, sesame seeds, you could put chili, whatever you wanted to put on the top, and just to give it that kind of nice little lasting flavour on the top as well. Just to top it off there, just from a garnish point of view, you might want to put a couple of, actually not too dry, basil leaves as well. Now, that's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes, trying to make it as neat as possible, 20 to 30 minutes in the oven at around 180 degrees, and let's have a look at that when that's done. We'll come back in about half an hour or so. Good on your pie. Okay, we've got the oven on at about 180, so it's probably close to 200, that's right. And I reckon for this around about 30 or so minutes, and then we'll check it, see if that's brown right off. Alrighty, see you soon. Okay, let's get a look at this. That's about 40 minutes in there. Ooh, yeah, perfect. I'll get that out and we'll take it out of that bowl. We'll let that cool a little bit and then we can take it out of the actual bowl. Looks great. There we go. There we go. Final product. Look forward to getting into it. Enjoy.